Welcome to Capital Catch-Up, the podcast that translates the latest moves in Congress into plain language insight. I'm Victor.
And I'm Lainey. Today we'll walk through a packed docket. A dozen bills ranging from surveillance extensions to space research, a federal judgeship nomination, a Senate Agriculture Committee meeting, and highlights from the April 17th congressional record. Let's get started. Damjan's 10th FISA-related legislation.
First, House Resolution 8322 seeks to amend the FISA Amendments Act of 2008, extending the authorities of Title VII of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act of 1978 through April 30, 2026. The Senate already passed an identical measure with unanimous consent on April 17th, as noted in the congressional record.
Title VII lets the government compel telecom companies to hand over metadata without a traditional warrant. Historically, that authority was first added after 9/11 to speed up counterterrorism investigations. Critics, like Senator Ron Wyden, worry about privacy erosion, but they also recognize that a short-term extension buys Congress time to craft a more permanent, reform-oriented framework.
The Senate is also moving Senate Bill 4344, which would extend Section 702 of the FISA Act for 3 years. Section 702 authorizes the collection of foreign targeted communications incidentally containing U.S. persons, data. It's been the centerpiece of the foreign target debate for over a decade, with courts repeatedly weighing its constitutionality.
Both extensions are temporary fixes. If they lapse, the government would have to revert to older, less efficient surveillance tools, potentially hampering investigations into cyber espionage and terrorism. For everyday Americans, the key question is whether the balance tips towards security or privacy, numbers reconciliation, and budget-related measures.
House Resolution 1 is a procedural vehicle, an act to provide for reconciliation pursuant to Title II of House Concurrent Resolution 14. Reconciliation is a budget process that allows certain fiscal legislation to pass the Senate with a simple majority, bypassing the filibuster.
Historically, reconciliation was created in the 1970s to streamline budget adjustments. In practice, it's become a shortcut for major policy changes. Think the 2017 tax overhaul. While we don't have the specific policy targets of this resolution, its presence signals that Congress is gearing up for a budget-focused legislative push later this year. Knowledge science, space, and research.
Senate Bill 2351, the Space Exploration Research Act, would establish a coordinated research agenda for NASA, the Department of Energy's space labs, and private partners. It aims to fund next-generation propulsion, lunar habitat research, and deep space communication.
The historical context is the Artemis program's push to return humans to the moon by the mid-2020s. By codifying a research framework, the bill could reduce duplication and ensure taxpayer dollars flow to projects with clear commercial spillovers. Think satellite broadband and asteroid mining.
On the House side, we have House Resolution 7173, the Follow the Science Act. It directs federal agencies to base regulatory decisions on peer-reviewed scientific evidence and to publish the underlying data. This mirrors the 2009 Science Integrity Directives, but adds enforcement mechanisms.
For everyday Americans, that could mean more transparent environmental regulations, clearer health guidelines, and reduced regulatory capture, where industry-funded studies sway policy. NUMJ, regulatory reform and border security.
2 bills target the regulatory landscape. House Resolution 6398, the Red Tape Act, would require agencies to conduct cost-benefit analyses for any new rule and to sunset regulations that no longer meet a, quote, interest threshold after 5 years.
The idea of sunsetting rules dates back to the 1990s, when Congress tried to curb the growth of the federal regulatory state. If enacted, businesses could see fewer compliance costs, while watchdog groups worry that essential protections might be prematurely eliminated.
Complementing that, House Resolution 6409, the Fences Act, focuses on border security infrastructure, specifically funding for physical barriers, surveillance drones, and rapid response teams along high-traffic crossing points.
Historically, fence legislation has been a flashpoint in immigration debates. The act's impact on local economies, through construction jobs, must be weighed against concerns about humanitarian treatment of migrants, comtamic humanitarian and social policy.
House Resolution 8256, the Senior Hunger Prevention Act of 2026, expands SNAP eligibility for seniors, adds nutrition education grants, and authorizes a pilot Meals on Wheels expansion in rural areas.
With seniors comprising a growing share of the U.S. population, food insecurity among them is a rising issue. This bill could reduce emergency room visits linked to malnutrition, saving both lives and healthcare costs.
Similarly, House Resolution 7866, the American Lending Fairness Act of 2026, would tighten oversight of predatory lending practices, require clearer APR disclosures, and empower the CFPB to issue fines for violations.
By making loan terms more transparent, the Act aims to protect low-income borrowers, especially in the wake of rising student loan and payday loan debt.
On the immigration front, House Resolution 1689 directs the Secretary of Homeland Security to designate Haiti for Temporary Protected Status, TPS. TPS provides temporary work authorization and protection from deportation for nationals from countries experiencing armed conflict or natural disaster.
Haiti's ongoing humanitarian crisis, exacerbated by the 2021 earthquake and political instability, makes this a timely measure. For Haitian families already in the U.S., TPS could mean legal work, access to health care, and the ability to send remittances home. Veterans, wildlife, and law enforcement.
Senate Bill 1552, the Living Donor Protection Act of 2025, creates a federal fund to reimburse living organ donors for lost wages and medical expenses, and it imposes penalties on entities that coerce donation.
This addresses a long-standing gap. While deceased donor families receive tax credits, living donors often bear financial burdens. The bill could increase donor willingness, potentially shortening transplant waitlists.
Senate Bill 6251 amends the Marine Mammal Protection Act to allow importation of polar bear trophies taken in Canada before the species was listed as threatened under the Endangered Species Act. It's a narrow carve-out for pre-listing hunts.
Critics argue it undermines conservation messaging, while supporters claim it respects historical hunting traditions. The bill highlights the tension between wildlife protection and cultural practices.
Finally, House Resolution 8267, the Safer Transport Act, authorizes a grant program for modernizing freight rail safety systems, including positive train control upgrades and crew fatigue monitoring.
After several high-profile rail accidents, this act could reduce derailments, protecting both cargo and nearby communities. For nominations and committee business.
Turning to nominations, President Biden's pick Andrew B. Davis of Texas is slated to become a United States District Judge for the Western District of Texas, filling the seat vacated by the retired Earl Leroy Yeagle III.
The Senate Judiciary Committee will hold a hearing, then the full Senate votes. Confirmation is crucial because district judges handle the bulk of federal civil and criminal cases, affecting everything from immigration hearings to patent disputes.
In the Senate Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry Committee, a business meeting is scheduled for today, April 20th, to consider Glenn Smith of Iowa for Undersecretary of Agriculture for Rural Development. That role oversees USDA programs that fund broadband expansion, water infrastructure, and small business loans in rural America.
The confirmation process here is less contentious than judicial nominations, but the committee will still scrutinize Smith's experience with rural economic development and his stance on climate-resilient farming. Highlights from the Congressional Record, April 17, 2026.
The April 17th Congressional Record, Volume 172, Number 68, notes that Senator Katie Boyd Britt served as acting president pro tempore. The Senate passed the FISA extension, House Resolution 8322, by unanimous consent, underscoring bipartisan agreement on the need for a stopgap.
Senator Wyden lifted his hold on Colonel Thomas M. Sieverts, allowing his promotion to brigadier general. Holds are a procedural tool where a single senator can delay a nomination, often to extract concessions or raise concerns. Lifting a hold signals that any outstanding issues have been addressed.
The Senate adjourned until Monday, April 20th at 3 p.m., setting the stage for further debate on the surveillance bills and other pending measures. Putting it all together.
Across these items, a common thread emerges. Congress is juggling short-term fixes, like the FISA extensions, with longer-term policy ambitions in space, health, and infrastructure.
For everyday Americans, the immediate impacts will be felt in privacy protections, food security for seniors, loan transparency, and potentially new pathways to legal status for Haitian migrants. Longer term, the Space Exploration Research Act and Safer Transport Act could drive jobs and technological advances.
And the procedural bits, reconciliation, holds, unanimous consent show how the legislative engine runs. Understanding those mechanisms helps listeners see why some bills move swiftly while others stall.
That wraps our deep dive for today.
Keep an eye on the upcoming votes on House Resolution 8322 and Senate Bill 4344, the confirmation hearings for Judge Davis and Undersecretary Smith, and the progress of the Red Tape and Fences Acts. Those will shape the policy landscape in the weeks ahead.
Thanks for joining us on Capitol Catch-Up. Subscribe for more detailed breakdowns of Congress's work.
Until next time, stay informed.